Hi, and welcome to another episode of Lunchtime Live with the Wild Center. My name is Nick, and today I will be your host. And I have a very special episode planned today because I'm coming to you from the Wild Center. So I'm taking a break from helping to take care of the animals here to lead a naturalist walk along our trails. So why don't you come on with me and we'll see what cool things we can find. So here we have a very cool plant that you can find on our property. It's just starting to emerge, and as you can see in the background there is still some snow on the ground. But this three-leafed plant is often confused for poison ivy, but it is different. What this plant is wild strawberry, which is probably one of the tastiest berries you could find in the woods, if you can find them before the animals do. So this is one of the favorite fruits of squirrels and other animals that come across them. They are super sweet, but they're only about the size of a thimble, so they're very different than the strawberries you'd buy in a grocery store, but very tasty. Now this tree behind me is a very common species throughout the Adirondacks. This one is a gray birch, and birch have a lot of different uses, the many different species, but one of the surprising uses is to make syrup. So maple trees are famous for maple syrup, and that is because they have a very high sugar content. But you can make syrup from other trees, such as birch as well. It's not done very often. One estimate that I read said only about 5,000 gallons of birch syrup is produced a year. Now the reason is, it takes about 110 gallons of sap from a birch tree to make 1 gallon of syrup. If you compare that to maple trees, it's about 40 gallons of sap to 1 gallon of syrup. So it's a lot more work. But you can sell it for a lot more money, that means. Now, it's not great for pancakes, but it is really good for things like vinaigrettes, marinades, and it's used in a lot of high-end restaurants. Here is another very important Adirondack species. This is an eastern white pine. Now, white pines are important both for humans and animals. Humans have used white pines for a lot of different uses. They actually used to be called mast pine because they used to be used as ship mast. Now they are a very important wildlife tree. The cones are eaten by a lot of different animals, but it's also one of the bald eagle's favorite nesting trees. And the reason for that is that the eagle's nests are so large, they need a really big, sturdy tree like a white pine to build in. It's been estimated that a bald eagle's nest can weigh up to 2 tons. Now here we have another very cool plant on the ground. So this is what is called a princess pine, but the name is deceiving in that they are not pines at all. They actually belong to a group of plants called club mosses. The name is also deceiving because they're not mosses. So they're a very unique, special plant. This is as tall as they get. So I can put my hand there as a reference. So they're very tiny, but you will find them across the ground throughout the Adirondacks. Now, even though it may not look like spring because there still is snow on the ground, it absolutely is. But a lot of the trees have not budded out with their leaves yet. But as you can see, this tree behind me does still have its leaves on it. This is an American beech, and young American beeches and some young oaks will do what's called marcescence, in that they will hold on to their leaves all winter long. Now, there's a lot of different theories on why they might do it. Some think it might be for water retention. Others might think that it's a deterrent for animals like deer. They're probably not going to want to go and eat a mouthful of dry leaves, so it keeps them from going and chewing on this during the winter. So here we have what is known as a midden. So this is the base of a Scotch pine tree where you can see there's a giant pile of the leftovers from pine cones. And this is basically a red squirrel's garbage pile. So what they'll do is they'll sit up in a tree and they will eat the cones, and then when they're done they just drop the leftovers at the base. And you'll find massive mounds at the bottoms of trees from these red squirrels. So what they'll do is they'll take a pine cone like this, they'll actually peel off each individual one of these scales, and there's a seed underneath, and that's what they're looking to eat. Now when they're done eating, this is what is left over. So they clean it pretty well, and what they'll do is they'll just toss it on the ground, and you'll find these massive mounds. If you've been hiking throughout the Adirondacks, you may have come across a giant boulder such as this that seems a little out of place, just kind of sitting there. What these are known as is glacial erratics, and they are rocks that were frozen in the massive glaciers, but as they melted, they were dropped and deposited all across this area. So as you can see on this tree, there's some holes in a horizontal line that are almost perfectly straight. What this is from is a yellow-bellied sapsucker, which is a species of woodpecker we have here in the Adirondacks. And the reason I know that these are from a sapsucker is that it's very typical of that species to drill these holes in a straight line like this. So they'll drill these holes, they will come back later on once the sap has had a chance to ooze out, and just as their name states, they will suck up all that sap. Now if an insect gets caught in that sap, they'll absolutely eat that as well, but they're mainly after the sap. Now if you imagine trying to pound your face against a tree like this to get your lunch, that would hurt a lot. So they have some special adaptations that allow them to do that. The muscles that attach to their tongue will actually circulate around their skull and act as a cushion while they're chiseling away to help protect it from rattling around. Now a lot of people think that woodpeckers kill trees. Now, if you imagine drilling a hole like this, isn't always the best thing for the tree, but woodpeckers are going after trees that have already been infected by insects. So they're mainly after the insects, not there to just hurt the tree. So I want to thank you all for joining me today on this adventure around the trails at the Wild Center. Hopefully you learned something new. And if you refresh your page just after this, I will be going live to help answer any questions. But I just want to say thank you all for tuning in and supporting us here at the Wild Center. It means a lot that you are watching these lunchtime lives. Remember that we're doing these Monday through Friday at noon. But if you miss one, they are recorded on our website, so feel free to check that out.